Hey folks, and welcome back. It's finally time, ZOL is finally out, and I have some good news and some bad news as well. I want to start with the bad news. It's really not too much, it's just that I won't be able to make any content for like the next few weeks or so. I have some personal stuff that I need to deal with, so I'm going to be away from home for a while. Nothing to worry about, I just won't have any content meanwhile, but I've got some stuff that I have had in the works for a little bit, and I'm going to work on stuff meanwhile. But you won't see anything until September, so hopefully I'll be able to get some of that stuff out then. But the good news, we've got COL finally, so we can talk about that sort of stuff. I already went through the Fate channel and that sort of stuff on my own, just because I felt like that wasn't really exactly the best way to get my whole reaction and take out of it. But I will share some of my my reactions to the Fate channel right about now.
When I think of that, I feel strength well up inside.
Oh, she's the Lance? Wait, what?
Presenting the
Ephraim Eirika? What?
Eirika.
Okay, sure. It is done by Wada Sachiko though, so a lot of people anticipated that one. Okay. Wait, so that means. Wait, did they do? They actually did Pantsless Marth, but he's wearing. What? Wait, no, never mind. I'm stupid. Wait, what is this outfit then? I actually don't recognize this at all.
I hear his outfit is based on the first king of Altea, Henri.
Henri, okay. You know, that makes a lot of sense. I think I definitely heard a somebody with that theory craft.
He's neutralizing effects that guarantee foes follow-up attacks, while also neutralizing effects that prevent him from performing follow-up attacks during combat. He's
Jesus, that's a
+5
mouthful.
to his attack, healing 5 HP to himself when dealing damage, and he can attack enemies before they attack him when they initiate combat.
What a mouthful.
See? Pretty straightforward.
Jesus Christ. Oh God. Okay.
Nothing to report.
Wait, who's artist? What the hell?
Finally,
What?
here's the winner of the men's division.
Holy
It's the
shit,
Gatekeeper,
that
Garrick
art.
from Fire Emblem 3 Houses. A member of the Knights of Saros,
What?
he's sworn to protect the gates of the monastery at all costs. He's known for
Wow.
being cheerful and lively when he's on duty, and I'm sure he'll make a pleasant addition to any army. His weapon is called Charging Horn,
What? He's a
and he just
what?
needs to give it a toot for its
What?
magic to take effect.
What?
It grants all sorts of benefits based on how many
Holy
allies
shit,
are within
what?
3 rows or 3 columns centered on him.
Reporting for duty.
If there's
So with that out of the way, let's talk about the actual banner, and let's go through the whole thing first, just so I can go through that again, and I'll go through some of the other information as well before getting on to the actual units themselves. And I know, like, overall, I think my consensus for this banner, I'm definitely very enamored with the Gatekeeper in a weird way. Everyone else, it's like, we'll talk about it after. It's fine. Don't worry about
There are
it.
so many that believe in me, and nothing could make me happier.
I saw a meme actually on Twitter in between the watching the Fate channel and watching this. Very interesting meme. I'll leave it up on the on screen right now. Very interesting Marth, but I mean, not really much to say about that. But I'll leave the credits in the description below, obviously. Hi Sid. Eirika though,
there are those who have faith in me. When I think of that, I feel strength well up inside.
Definitely a very interesting surprise. I didn't expect her to be dressed like Ephraim, but at the same time, I'm somehow not surprised either. It's really weird. I don't entirely know what to think about it in a way, but at the same time, Jesus.
My conviction.
No, well. And then I have to show the Kanto stuff, obviously, because that's in her her perf skill. Yeah, we'll talk about that later. Marianne, though, oh my god, I find it very interesting.
I understand it, but I suppose they chose me for a reason.
I find it very interesting that they didn't actually end up giving her a perf skill and give it to Eirika instead, but I guess that's what the whole dance is for instead. It's very interesting, but that's just me. Jesus. Everybody here is very interesting at the very least, so it's a lot to take in. And yeah, there's Requiem Dance right there, her new special. Gatekeeper, this is the most pleasant surprise. Very much so. Like,
Greetings, summoner. Nothing to report.
Greetings, summoner. Nothing to report. Nobody would have expected him to be on MAGE. But not necessarily MAGE, but he also is. It's really weird. Incredibly weird. But I'm not surprised. I'm really not. Go. The gates have opened and everyone's there. Jesus. Oh my god. And I wonder if that actually showed off here. Who the GHB is. Because I know who it is. It's not even being shown. I understand. Okay. I'm assuming it's going to go over everything else here. Yes. Okay. So what I need to look at anything else. So first off, I want to mention the DHB since it wasn't there. They revealed that the DHB is actually going to be Pelleas, which goes along with the whole theme of the whole Pelleas units being free with the whole CYL stuff in some regard. I mean, Sigrun happened first, then George, now Pelleas. So, I mean, I guess it works out. I think a lot of people would have wanted to maybe summon for Pelleas depending on how things were. He's a pretty popular character. So I could see him being here. And he does also feel like an outlier at the same time. So I can kind of see that, actually. But I guess my parts are completely wrong. I just didn't think they'd do Pelleas a third time in a row. But it's fine. They'll actually, I believe they show it here, actually, as a matter of fact. You're going to be able to spark up to 4 times on the spanner. A lot of people probably expected that one as well. So you can also get 4 Celestial Stones as well. That's cool. When it comes to also other stuff that's happening, they're also increasing the cap for Dragonflowers as well. They're going up to, well, 15 is 20, 10 to 15, 5 to 10, so on and so forth. So that's going to be interesting. But what they're giving out is for, if you log in between when the banner goes live and to the end of August, you're going to be able to get 120 Dragonflowers for each of the categories just for free, just to help out with that. So what it happens. I already saved up like my flyer and my infantry ones just because I didn't have anyone I want to use it on quite yet. So now they increase the caps. I know exactly what I'm doing, but you know what? It happens. All right, let's talk about the units because I find that they're very, I've said it before and it's really just me being uncreative with my vocabulary, but they're all very interesting units at the very least. Some of them were kind of expected, some of them aren't necessarily, but they all bring some weird stuff to the table. It's gonna be weird for me to process it all because I need to fully like look at it all, read through it, and we'll go through things, you know, in person right now, live. So we've got Marth. He is inspired by Henri. I don't quite remember what Henri's art looked like or if like what there has been of him. If there's anything, I'll show it on screen right now. I don't fully remember what art there has been of Henri myself at the very least, so it's definitely a little weird looking at it right now, just because, I mean, even in the Fate channel, they said it itself, it's weird looking at him in red because he's always seen in blue usually. And, I mean, it's not an awful look for him, honestly. It's just, you know, it's a little daunting in a way, but at the same time, I'm sure I'll get used to it, but it's like, whatever, okay. But he is basically the hero Henri. I guess he has some stuff to make it work out for being a, well, you know, he's the sword infantry of the banner, which a lot of people expected since, I mean, it's Marth. He's the very first lord, the first sword user lord and all that stuff. All right, so let's talk about Genesis Falchion. It's a very interesting weapon, at least in terms of what its whole weird main effect is. Otherwise, he usually, well, he has the good stuff that you would expect him to have. He has slaying, dragon effectiveness, and then the plus 5 to all stats for either initiating or being near an ally. That stuff just makes a lot of sense for him in that regard, just allows him to do what he needs to do well. But the main effect of this weapon is that he actually gets certain bonuses when, like value bonuses, like stat bonuses are on units nearby. It takes the total value from the bonuses of 3 allies that had the highest totals. So this works out basically for all game modes, whether you're just going through regular stuff or especially Aether Raids, for example. It won't work with like Hero's Journey, but it's like, what's the point in that? It's whatever. But let's talk about the stat or the weird bonuses that he's going to get. So if the units around him have at least bonuses that equal up to 10 or more, he's going to get null follow-up, which I mean already in itself, just for 10, it's going to work out super nicely in that regard. And I mean, at that point, when you look at the rest of his kit, or at least mostly his special, this one should always be active, I'd imagine, just because of the values. And getting null follow-up like that for basically, in a way, you can consider free. Getting that in your weapon specifically, it definitely helps a lot so that you can run different stuff in your B. I mean, he's running Spurn for that matter. It definitely, he wants that a lot more than putting null follow-up there. So the fact that he has it basically kind of free-ish in his weapon definitely helps out. But everything else is pretty much juicier in a way. So if allies nearby have bonuses equal to 25 or more, he's going to get an additional +5 attack during combat, but then he also gets some self-sustain. He's going to restore 5 HP, I believe, yeah, every time he deals damage to a foe. So I believe it's about the same-ish value as the inheritable Valentine weapons or something like that, or at least, no, it's like the same as like Tannin Bit, but it actually has a second effect this time. So that definitely helps out as well. Might be a little weirder to trigger this one, but also at the same time not. It'll especially, I think, work out if this one goes off like in his second combat perhaps, because based on his special, he'll be able to get those sort of numbers a lot more consistently then. Not like saying he can't get it before getting his allies up to, or just having 25 or more total visible stat buffs. It's just, it'll be a lot easier for him to reach that effect if that happens. Just because he only needs like 1 unit and maybe another with like a little bit more to get to the 25. So, but the 60 one, this one is very interesting. If the total stats, the visible stat bonuses on his allies are equal or above 60, he's going to get Vantage. And that, I really don't know what to think about that in terms of play style. Just because, just looking at the weapon itself, it's really weird to look at it just in a nutshell. Because you have to look at the rest of his stuff as well. But seeing that he can basically get free Vantage as well, if his conditions are ideally met, I really wonder what that's going to entail for him. I really couldn't say what's going to happen there. But I mean, let's just look at the rest of the stuff so that I can at least get a better frame of it. So Shining Emblem, I looked at this. It's basically, in a way, it's like you're combining some ideas that you had from whatever Legendary Sigurd's special was by giving him like some stats or just like some sort of bonus just in general for having this special, you know, on him, and then also grant bonuses when it would trigger during combat as well. So at the start of your turn, if you're within 2 spaces of an ally and you have that special, basically just, you know, as is, Martha himself is going to get +6 to all stats visible. And he's also going to give allies within 2 spaces +6 attack for 1 turn. So he's going to get buffs for himself and give a few nearby buffs for his allies, so that at the very least, because that still equals out to, I believe, 24, he'll at least be able to get his null follow-up easily. If your allies have like some other buffs as well that aren't the +6 attack, you'll probably be able to get your null follow-up easily, or not the null follow-up, the self-sustain as well. Not quite the Vantage though, but that's where the next bit comes in. So, I mean, besides the actual special dealing 35% of unit speed, which is, Jesus. I mean, it's not quite, I think, like Regnal Astra and that stuff, right? I believe that's 40, if I remember correctly, or am I wrong? I don't remember. I'll leave it up on screen right now, just for my sake of knowing and, you know, being, having some clarification. But after combat, when he does trigger his special, he's going to be giving +6 wall stats to all of his allies, and including himself again for 1 turn. So that's how he's going to get the rest of the buffs. So, I mean, if you think about that, yeah, because even looking at the stuff, okay, no, he actually needs the allies within 2 spaces. Okay, I think. So when you reach all of that in total, if he's nearby a bunch of those units, which, I mean, he should be usually nearby them. I mean, he is an infantry unit, right? I mean, besides having odd Tempest, or sorry, even Tempest, he's going to be still sticking around his team, especially if you're doing stuff with him like in modes like Aether Race and that, for example. You're going to be near chainmates basically like all the time. So you're definitely going to be proccing most of his effects, especially when it comes to his weapon. And just being able to basically self-sustain and just do all that through your special, it helps a lot. And being able to deal with basically any sorts of allies, except for like stuff with like people who have like dazzling effects, it's like that's whatever. Otherwise, he's going to be able to deal with them all, especially when you have this, what I would assume is basically, I guess, would you call this like a tier 4 DC? I'm not too sure, but this is basically, I would imagine, Distant Counter is below this? I'm not too sure, but it's called Distant Pressure. It's DC, but what happens is that at the start of combat, if you're above 25% HP or higher, you're going to get speed +5 during combat. And then after combat, if unit attacked, you're going to deal 5 damage to yourself, which I find is very interesting for some sort of setup stuff. I think there's going to be very specific units that will want this sort of thing, especially when it comes to units that, say, want to be not at full health to get some certain effects, I would imagine. I can't think of any off the top of my head, but I also like the fact that, especially when it comes to units who really want to run DC in their A slot, it really does take away from being able to get stuff that you could possibly want to run when you also are lacking an A slot. You're not going to be able to run stuff like a solo, like a swift spur, like a stance. You're not going to be able to get any sort of weird stats if you're running DC in your A slot. So this makes up for it in some sort of extent, and I think speed is one that definitely helps out a lot. I feel like an example, if I were to think about this myself, if I wanted to put this on, say, like my dual Alm, for example, just out of nowhere, if I wanted to do that, he's going to have his DC, but if I wanted to go up against something like dual Byleth or Ninjalin, for example, I'm going to need to do what I can to try to outspeed them as well before they try to like double or quad me, and I lose like a run, for example, or something like that, and like Arena Assault or something like that. So being able to get some extra speed out of that, while healthy, while also being able to counter them as well, it's definitely going to help a lot. Yeah, it'll be a little weird to have the self-infliction damage by like 5, but it's like, okay, sure. It's like, it's a double-edged sword in a way, but it's definitely able to be utilized by certain units that want to be not at full HP. Maybe for an example, it could also help with something like DC Vantage, depending on how that works. Although I don't think that this might be on caps. I'm not too sure. We have to wait to see restrictions on basically all the skills that are going to be released, just for the sake of understanding what's going on here. So seeing what's going to happen with Distant Pressure, I think it's going to be interesting to see what sort of units are going to want this sort of stuff. Because not only are you going to want the stats, there are going to be some units who want the self-infliction as well. But I mean, it's another version of DC, just, you know, a little better and a little different than when it came to the foils and wards, especially because those gave stats, but you couldn't counter everything. Now you can counter everything and get a few stats, but it's like whatever. And we see another skill like this later on, but we'll talk about it then. But overall, I think when it comes to Marth, he has a lot of effects that he's going to be able to proc, but it's really going to depend on making sure that he can get off his visible buffs. I think the main thing that's really going to screw him over, and I mean, it's kind of already obvious, Panic is probably going to screw him over a good bit, especially since the bonuses that he needs to trigger all of his effects are value bonuses. So basically like visible buffs, I'm pretty sure. I don't think this would count anything along the lines of, say, if you were to have like a triangle attack bonus, dominance bonus, etc., extra movement. Like, I don't think those are going to proc anything here. And that, I don't see how that could even work out really for him as well, but it's like, it would be cool, but at the same time, I don't know how you'd work that out. But the main thing is that it's working off of visible buffs, and it's basically, in a way, you could actually consider that this time actually as a double-edged sword, because if you're able to get those visible buffs and keep them around, Martha's going to have a lot of good stuff going for him. At his best, he's going to have a lot of stats, slaying, to basically make sure that he's always going to be proccing his special in some regard. He's going to have damage reduction from Spurn, and basically extra damage from that since it's the Wrath dodge. You're going to have Null Follow-Up, some self-sustain, and some extra damage, and Vantage. But the best way to be able to get away from all that sort of stuff, just pull out like a Versa or something like that, that's stacking HP. If you're able to deal with that sort of stuff, maybe you'll have like some units that are okay enough to be able to soak HP-based Panic and that sort of stuff and not get affected by it. But that's not going to be the case for all of your units. And to that detriment, you're going to be weakening him just by him inflicting the buffs on himself, basically. I could imagine Panic Smoke also being quite useful as well. So just have one person go in on somebody, and hopefully your Panic Smoker doesn't necessarily die or anything like that. But if they get off that Panic Smoke and Marth uses his special, it's not going to necessarily be the best thing for that Marth and his allies. So that's how you want to deal with that at the very least. But overall, I think it's a pretty interesting way to give yourself bonuses by having a lot of basically a lot of strength from your allies to further boast around. So that's cool. Now let's talk about Eirika, because once again, some very interesting concepts here. Basically, she's basically like, I don't want to say legendary Ephraim. Mostly, I'm just thinking about that for the classing. She's literally dressed like Ephraim. She's a Lance Cavalier, so, I mean, basically like his promoted class and that sort of stuff. But she has some really weird stuff going for her, but also typical sort of stuff you would expect from a Cav nowadays. So I'm gonna be honest, the only thing I really actually did in terms of research looking into the stuff was just looking at more, so I at least have something I can start off with. So everything else is gonna be very much me sort of going into it, half knowing what it is, but not fully. But it's just what happens. So she has her own Regin Leaf, which, I mean, if you remember having Regin Leaf on dual Ephraim, you know that was already kind of a little nutty having him have the dual effectiveness on armor and cavalry foes. That's here as well as some slaying. And at start of combat, if she's healthy, she'll get +5 during combat. Introduces the damage from foe's first combat attack, or foe's first attack, I mean, by 30%. And also, if unit initiates combat, neutralizes effects that prevent unit fall attacks. So she basically has the player focus and will fall up as well for being healthy. And she can also take a little bit less damage on the first counter that your foe does. So she'll be able to sustain a little bit more, which helps. Surge Sparrow. That's her new inheritable A. It's very bizarre, mostly down to the fact and what its sub effect is, because innately in itself, it's basically Swift Sparrow to an extent. I mean, it's like if you initiates combat, you're going to get attack and speed, however much, +7 in this case, during combat. But if the unit actually deals damage to foe using a special, in this case, her default is Luna. You might want to replace that with maybe like a Moonbow or Glimmer, just so that you can have that on one turn, preferably. She's going to be able to restore HP to a percentage amount of units max HP. Okay. And that is triggered by units max special cooldown count value times 20 plus 10 max 100. I don't actually fully understand the whole math there, just because I'm being a little silly about it. I think what it is that, okay, I don't think I'm going to fully understand or get the math right here, but X is basically like your cooldown. So in this case, Luna, it's 3 times 20 plus 10. Am I getting that right? I don't think so. I really don't think that's it. Oh well, but you get what I mean though with this sort of thing. What it is that you're getting HP back very easily just by attacking on player phase. And that's very, very powerful. Especially if you don't have anything like, you're not running like a noontime or a soul build. Basically anything to get your cooldowns, your special cooldowns back fast to restore some sort of HP. Or you don't have like a self-sustain passive healing weapon. This is the way that you can deal with that sort of stuff, especially for player phase units that don't necessarily have access to abilities that allow you to accelerate your special charge. Like you don't have Timeless Pulse on a Cavalier, for example. You don't necessarily have a lot of stuff that let you basically accelerate your cooldown charge, basically getting like 2 bits of your cooldown in like one attack. So being able to get self-sustain just from initiating and getting a special off, especially when it's also tied to, you get some more HP if you have a higher cooldown special, which I find is very interesting. Although I don't think it's too bad, because I mean, even if you're going off of like because I don't actually know how it's going to work out, especially with slang. So if you have like Moonbow here, for example, and that's like a 1-turn cooldown special with slang, would that make this value like 30 or something like that? Because then it'd be like 1 times 20 and then plus 10, that's 30. So it's like, that's still not bad though. Sorry about that weird cut. I had to pause during the recording. I actually don't remember what I last said. I think it was something about the whole wondering what the whole value is going to be and that sort of stuff. Oh yeah, let's talk about the healing. So what's going to end up happening is that, well, I'm not too sure how the whole HP value is going to go with this sort of stuff, or at least the healing when it comes to like lower cooldown special with slang. At least I don't know how that interaction is going to work, but I don't think it's going to matter when it comes to like the HP stuff, because most people aren't going to have too high-ish HP to where you're not going to be able to recover like a lot to keep you alive. I mean, 30 is still a good bit, especially when units are around like the 40 to 50-ish HP range by default. So it shouldn't be too bad. Maybe it might be weird for some other units, but it's like, hey, those units probably aren't going to be running this skill anyway. So it's like, whatever. I don't really know what else to really say here just because I don't remember what else was going on about, but it's like, okay, fine. So let's talk about her perf skill for being the unit in her gendered class for being second place rather than first. She is the one with it, which I find very bizarre, but at the same time, like I said before, I can see where it happens just based on what Marianne has for a preferred special. But well, let's talk about Moonlight Bangle. So it's basically the 2 Canto, whatever it is. I believe this is, who exactly else has this? I don't quite remember. It's usually been like other units. I was more thinking about what Cavaliers have it, but it's like, it doesn't matter. Just Canto 2. It's like, whatever. You're going to be able to move 2 spaces rather than 3. Actually, I find that very weird. Oh, well. But the thing is, it probably is too, just based on the sub effect. So basically, what happens is that it neutralizes units' penalties and inflict basically any sort of guard. And it also deals damage equal to a percentage amount of foe's defense when that special triggers. So X is triggered by units' max special cooldown value, like times 10 plus 20. So, wait, what? I really don't understand the language in some of these specials. I'm just being honest. Oh, okay. So here's what it's basically trying to do. So X is going to be your cooldown value. So in this case, it's Luna. So you're going with 3. Times 10, so 30 plus 20, that's 50. So by default, she's going to be dealing some extra damage through her special based on half of the foe's defense stat, which is fair. I think that's not too bad in itself. When it comes to other stuff, I mean, if you're running higher cooldown specials again, it's going to be a little nicer in that regard. But I mean, that's the whole trade-off. You're going to have a harder time getting to those specials at the same time because you don't have any ways to really accelerate your specials too much, really, especially as a Cavalier. So it really depends on what sort of playstyle you really want with that, or at least what specials you decide to run. And I think in a way, this sort of does work out, mostly down to the fact that, hey, if you're going to be running like a higher cooldown special, like, hey, again, Luna comes to mind here, especially because it's a 3 special. But you still can also get something like Aether, which is 5. You have AoEs, which I believe are like 4, for example. You at least have the trade-off that if you do decide to run those specials, you're at least going to have some sort of self-sustain so that you can at least, you know, stay alive and not have Eirika die just for running a higher special, so you can't take advantage of keeping yourself alive using like solar, what was it again? Noontime, for example. So I think that works out. And I mean, I guess you can also mention attack speed menace as well. If she's near a foe remotely, they're gonna not be able to do as well offensively, but she'll do a little better offensively. I think this just works out just to keep her alive a little bit more as well. It just works out, I feel. So overall, you can probably understand that, hey, she's just another player phase Cavalier and that sort of stuff. But what she's really introducing is the fact that she's going to be able to do some very odd damage as well. It's basically kind of akin to her legendary variant, except a lot more optimized. But she's also bringing in an ability for units who want to do a lot of stuff on player phase that don't necessarily want to have like distant counter or close counter, for example. They just want to do damage on player phase. Anybody who's a damage bruiser in that regard, they're going to have some way of self-sustain that isn't through a special. And I think that's really cool. I don't know how it's all going to size up, but I think that's really nice. And I think this works out for her being the second place unit. Because let's be honest, everybody else after this, it's already taken long to get through Marth. It's been a little long, but not as much with Eirika, but everybody else, oh god. I don't know where I'm going to have to start with those. It's going to be quite a mouthful. So now we're on to our first place female. We've got Marianne, who is a colorless mage, infantry, not quite a dancer, but I mean, in a way, you could also kind of consider her that in a way, to a very odd extent. It's really weird, but she's dressed in dancer attire, and she's, well, time skip technically, but she's also got inspiration from basically her blood crest, her crest of the beast, I believe. There's a lot of inspiration of that in here, as you were able to see in the Fade channel as well when it came to animations. So let's talk about what she's got exactly. So her Phantasm Tome is going to give her speed +3. A start of combat if foe's HP is relatively healthy, 50 or higher. She's going to inflict speed and res -6 on that foe. Neutralize foe's bonuses as well. So it's basically like a mega lull speed res. But if Marianne initiates combat, she's going to be able to reduce damage from the foe's first attack by a whopping 70%. Like, you thought it was interesting for Eirika to have, I think it was like 30%. You've got 70 here. It's just like, jeez. I mean, it doesn't get to like, well, it is a pretty insane level, but it's really weird to compare it to other units who get that sort of number when it comes to like enemy phase stuff, because it's usually been on stuff like Gustav or Brave Edelgard, who get it on like their enemy's phase, for example. She's just basically taking like almost no damage, or at least taking majority of the damage on her player phase, which I find very interesting. But it's like, okay, sure. Otherwise, for interesting and non, broken, really new personal stuff, attack speed Unity has finally been added to the game. It's been a year since Unities have been added. I can see how this sort of works out for her in a way. I don't know if it's going to be the best sort of skill that you might want for like attack and speed boosting, but hey, if she's being debuffed for her attack and speed for whatever reason, it's just not going to end up working because she's going to deal even more damage based on those penalties. So it's, that kind of works out. So I'm sure some people are going to find some ways to deal with that now that it's, hey, attack and speed. It's like, whatever. She's also got now follow-up in times pulse. Just works out overall, simply. I can't remember if that's the exact 2 skills that Legendary Byleth had as well. I don't quite remember. Something along those lines, or at least... Oh yeah, because no, he had the null follow-up in his weapon, but it's along that same sort of line. And then times pulse. It's like, just getting your specials a little bit more cooldown. And times pulse especially helps out when it comes to her new preferred special, Requiem Dance. It helps the special cooldown charge go down a little bit more since it's default by 3. So if she initiates combat, the ally with the highest HP within 2 spaces, who's already acted, is going to get granted another turn. This also works with other dancers as well. But the restriction is that movement, or the movement that ally has, is only going to be restricted to 1 space. So you're going to be able to, if Marianne initiates combat, the unit with the highest HP that's already acted, relatively nearby, is going to get another chance to move, but they're going to be hit with gravity. So it's just like, you're going to have to really figure out your positioning beforehand to really be able to take advantage of that, because it's still a very restrictive penalty to have it at gravity. I mean, you have to think of it sort of in the way like you would play Legendary Leaf, for example, except it's not going to be Marianne, it's going to be another ally. So depending on who that might be, it might not be the most favorable situation, but at the same time, you can make it favorable, if you get what I mean. I mean, you have to think about what it comes down to being able to take basically take the best advantage that you can from your dances and refreshes to be able to get the most out of your allies. This is basically what you have to do here. It's not like you've got a dancer or whatever that can basically do like a brainless dance that you can do whatever willy-nilly. You're going to get a very controlled dance here, and you're going to have your movement controlled as well. So being able to take the best advantage out of that as much as possible, it's going to be a very interesting dynamic. But I think that's also very interesting to be able to have, basically in a way, what harmonic units have already been having, at least certain ones having the weird dance with this sort of condition. Not the movement, but being able to give somebody, even like other refreshers, another turn or another action that same turn. Having that in a special now is very, very, I don't know how I would describe it. I mean, groundbreaking, obviously. Maybe influential. I really don't know what to really think about this, because, I mean, it's a special. It feels really weird to at least put this into words right now, at least immediately. It feels very bizarre. I genuinely am speechless with how this is, just because I find it really hard to get the words to really think about what I'm really trying to say here, just because I need to really see this in my own hands, in a way. Really see other people with this sort of thing. I think the reason why I'm so lost for words here is just because of just the fact that it's a really weird dance ability as a special. I think it's because I don't really know if it's broken or not. And that's what we're really going to see. It's just really weird to comprehend, you know? I mean, everything else so far has been quite daunting to look at. More so in like a good way, not like a bad way. It's just, it's a lot coming at you. And it's really just taking it all in at once. It's a lot, that's for sure. And especially when I'm so caught up on time, it's like, okay. But I mean, we're over 3 units already, but we still have the biggest hurdle to climb over through, where is he at? The one and only Gatekeeper. And might I say, from my reaction, holy hell, his art is absolutely the best in the game, especially when it comes from an artist that a lot of people haven't necessarily been, I think, the highest on, I believe. They're the ones who did like the Jagan and Ogma art before, but then recently I believe did Milla and did pretty well there too. So seeing this with Gatekeeper having basically like a George-esque level of art overall, at least they're neutral. The Gatekeeper neutral art is amazing. And I mean, you might going to get distracted by the art, but you also need to think, he's also a green mage. Like, who would have expected Gatekeeper to be doing damage based on res? Because they didn't want to give him an actual weapon. They wanted to just make his whole, like, Gatekeeper thing into a whole power, basically. Which I find very bizarre. And he's an infantry unit, too. Not an armor, like a lot of people would have thought. So, okay. With that out of the way, let's look at his I guess, his tome, his horn. His charging horn. So it gives him defense +3, grants attack and speed +5 to allies within 3 rows or 3 columns centered on him during combat. And then he also gets effects based on the number of allies within 3 rows and 3 columns. So if he has 1 ally or more, he's going to inflict attack and res -X on foe during combat. And that X is based on the number of allies in the area times 2. Max -6. So you can do a max -6 attack and res on your foe just for having like 1 ally nearby. If you have 3 or more allies, so again, this sort of covers up for Aetherids as well. Foe cannot make a follow-up attack. Just blocks all follow-ups. But the weird caveat here, and this is also going to apply to mostly stuff like Aetherids if you're playing on a map that has breakable walls. If unit is within 2 spaces of a structure that a foe can destroy just as is, I think. I don't know if it's just breakable walls. Maybe it can be like Aetherid structures as well. I'm not too sure. I think that's what a lot of people are going to have in their mind. Just for having a structure that can be broken by your foe nearby is going to proc that ability. It's just going to count that as if the number of allies in the area are treated as 3, which I find is very, very interesting. Like, they really wanted him to be used in Aetherids, and I think a lot of people were hoping for that as well. But did anybody really expect this? Like, seriously, who actually would have come up with this? Nobody, except for Intelligent Systems, that's for sure. Otherwise, he has Harsh Command Plus, which, I mean, sure. I mean, it's not necessarily like... It's sort of like a rally sort of thing. He's helping his allies. I mean, it's what you would expect, I guess. Back to when we were talking about... Distant Pressure, for example, that there's another skill sort of like it, and that's here with Close Reversal. It's a close kind of skill, not with the weird penalty, but you get a little bit more of it. If foe initiates combat, you're going to get +5 extra defense during combat, and you can counter regardless of foe's range, so it's like, okay, there you go. Joint Drive Defense is finally also making its debut in Fae. I was wondering what this was going to happen, because we've had the other stat variants of Joint Drives in the game for a little while now, so I was wondering when that was going to happen. And then oh boy, he has an obstruct level sort of thing with his preferred B skill, Detailed Report. So any one range units are not going to be able to move to through spaces adjacent to him. It doesn't affect foes with past skills or whatever that. Okay, sure, but you'll see that later. Foes that are ranged they won't be able to move through spaces within 2 spaces of him, so they basically have to more or less just attack him, but the best thing about this also as well is that foes cannot warp into spaces within 4 spaces of him. But it doesn't affect foes with pascals or warp effects from structures like grav domains and that sort of stuff. So you can't cheese that sort of stuff, but it's like, okay, whatever. But you can't have people with like Wings of Mercy or Escape Route warp pretty much nearby him to an extent. And in a way, this also stops people from using like those flyer bonuses, like guidance, flyer formation, all that sort of stuff. For example, you can't use orders buffs at all. All that sort of stuff is basically nullified here. And if you really want to get to the allies, you have to go through him first. So he's not going to have anything like the level of like Savior, for example, but his Obstruct basically, I mean, this is what people expected from him. You have to go through him to get to his allies. And this is probably, in a way, I kind of dig this. I think this is the best sort of case scenario for what they could have done for him. I feel like otherwise he doesn't have too much in terms of when it comes to crazy combat skills. I mean, he's got some debuffs as well in combat, and he can also prevent follow-ups. But if he goes up against somebody with like null follow-up, for example, that doesn't matter. He doesn't have any weird other like combat stuff. Like he's not going to get too many stats, whatnot. I mean, okay, here's the thing. I haven't even looked at the stats either. I was thinking in my head, I'll just put them through post-production. But I need to see what he's actually got myself, just so I can understand what's going on here. I don't even think they actually show him in combat here. So I'd have to look at the Fate channel, so never mind. I'm just going to put the stats on like screen consistently, so you'll understand what's going on. But, I mean, overall, I mean, I kind of already explained what the whole thing is going on for him. And it's just like, you kind of, I don't even know how to otherwise put into words except for everyone basically already kind of knew how this was going to go. They just didn't know how exactly. He's basically, well, yes, the gatekeeper to getting to the other units on your team. And a lot of people really expected this, especially for a mode like Aether Raids. I don't know. This is just honestly just overwhelming me at this point. Not necessarily in a bad way, but it's a lot to take in, especially from these. And it's just like, okay, I understand, but hey, there's another thing. All the animations too, like I said, everyone is here. You've got, oh, I didn't even see like Sylvain in the background there. But we've got, actually, I'm pretty sure those are like new chibis for like other like Fodlan soldiers as well, besides, well, Byleth and Mercedes and Sylvain here. Maybe that actually is Sylvain. Wait. Why do they have a thing for Sylvain when his base version isn't even in the game yet? What, did they just say that he just leaked something here, or like what's going on here exactly? I don't know what to quite think of that, but that's interesting. I mean, he's got nothing to do with this banner. I mean, Pelleas is a GHB, so I'm just like, okay, interesting. Jesus. This is just a lot. Like, you can already tell, like, this is a lot for me to deal with. And you can probably tell that this video is going to be completely incohesive. So it's just like, it's a clusterfuck, but not in a bad way. It's just like, it's a lot and it's really cool. Dear God. It's a lot. Okay, I need to end this video, or at least wrap it up before things get way too out of hand. So if you enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a like. Let me know who you're going to be grabbing for your free summon on this banner. Let me know what you think of the banner overall, because, well, I mean, when it comes to the whole narrative that I was giving, that this might be a letdown, I mean, there's some things you can grab here for inheritance, but it's like when it comes to the units, I was definitely thrown aback, that's for sure. I guess I was proven wrong, and I'm okay with admitting that, honestly. I really am. And I think that whole thing needs to be brought down upon, especially with that that previous video. So it's like, whatever. All right, I can see it, everybody. But hey, it happens. Anyways, if you do like what I have been making, and you're okay with waiting until September for another video, make sure to subscribe. And maybe hit that notification bell so you'll know when I actually upload in September. Why not? Sure. But all right, this has just been a lot. I need to get out of here. My name's Val, and I'll see you guys hopefully in the next video. And yeah, take care, everybody. I really do appreciate you guys. Bye-bye.